What's up, everyone? We're here with the Deeper Podcast. It's Tuesday.
We're a day off, man.
It is, yeah. I'm getting no work done today.
Okay,
That's
a great thing to say to your supervisor. What a start to the day. It's a short week, and he's not doing anything today.
Well, hunting season's officially started, so technically,
yeah, he's already
really
part-time at this point.
I'm not going to do anything.
So he already kind of has a pretty big side hustle with the photo stuff. Now it's your third side hustle, which is hunting.
It's not a side hustle. It's my life.
Okay.
So, anyways, segue from that.
We did it, yeah. Just let that linger in awkward silence.
Dove season did start yesterday.
That was like a half beat of awkward silence. It was.
I
so
thought you were
good.
going to have something, but you didn't. But
No,
it's fine.
Anyway.
Shout out. I do have to give a shout out to the legend himself, Jade Perry.
Oh, man.
We shot some doves yesterday.
Jade Perry, my guy.
So shout out Jade Perry. We had fun. So
very good.
I'm tired. I'm very sore too.
Just from shooting a bunch of shells?
From running and shooting.
Yeah.
I did lots of running.
Did you accidentally shoot anybody in the face?
No, but
good.
We all sprayed each other a few times.
There you go.
But nothing bad.
Well, very good.
Did you say shoot each other in the face?
I did.
We did not shoot each other in the face.
I thought you might have gone.
Can we change the subject? This is getting
Dick Cheney. I thought you were going to go full Dick Cheney.
No. Oh my
that
gosh.
bird hunting, I got it, man. I've hunted a few times.
It's fun.
I love it. I don't love when it's like, hey, we're all going to gather around this pond here.
And
just make sure you're shooting up, and like when pellets are raining down on you, not my cup of tea, man. Yeah. I go into like PTSD as if I, was in World War II or something. I'm ducking behind trees. I'm just
the worst is when they land and you just kind of hope it doesn't skip across the.
That's happened too, and everyone's boom. So then they're shooting at it like it's wild.
It's like everybody's shooting.
So usually when I go on a dove hunt, I'm the one who's like, oh, these guys are gonna go walk 500 yards and go along a fence line. All shoot, like that's where I want to go.
Yeah.
No. But it is fun. It's a fun type of hunting because it's active.
Yeah.
You're just like, you shoot a box of shells and have the time of your life.
Maybe hit one bird.
Yeah. Yeah, I usually shoot all three. Like third one is the charm for me. It's like boom, boom, got him.
Yep.
So.
Yep. But anyways, we had a lot of fun. But speaking of fun, Lamentations.
Yeah, speaking of fun, speaking of being shot in the face.
Yeah.
Lamentations.
Or shot in the
kidney. Got that arrow in the kidney, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lamentations. It was a fun message. I enjoyed preaching this text. There are certain sermons that when you are preaching through the word, people kind of, almost their eyes glaze over because they're like, we've heard this a bunch of times. Which, honestly, this next week we're going to dive into Romans 8. There's a lot of people who are probably very familiar with Romans 8. So they're just going to, you do lose a little bit of people's focus and attention sometimes when it's a very familiar passage. But when you go to Lamentations 3, which of course people are very familiar with verses 21 through 24, like these are t-shirt material, women's ministry material, like it's like these are the things, man. This is where we go. All your daily devos are pumping this one. But when you read verses 1 through 18, it's like, what is happening?
Yeah, you don't see that one anymore.
In fact, I didn't really plan on that, but I ended up doing it in both services where I just paused and was like, well, that's a lot. How we doing? Because it's just shocking to read through, because the writer starts essentially saying God is the one who's doing all this. So here's what he accuses the Lord of doing. Like, let's just read through these. First he says, I'm the one who's under God's wrath. And then's what it says. He, talking about God, has driven me away. God has forced him to walk in darkness. God has turned his hand against me. God has worn away my flesh and skin. God has broken my bones. God has laid siege against me. He's made me dwell in darkness. God has walled me in, weighed me down. Even when I'm crying out for help, God has walled me in and my prayers aren't getting up. God is a bear waiting to ambush me. God is a lion hiding, waiting to devour me. God has forced me off the way. He's torn me to pieces. God has shot me in the kidney with his bow. I'm being mocked by everybody. God's feeding me poison to help me. He's grinding my teeth with gravel. And then he finally just says, my future's lost and I have no hope in the Lord. That again, I said this yesterday during the sermon. If I got up and led with just a summary of that and said, here's how I feel today. God's against me. He's not hearing my prayers and he shot me with the arrow in the kidney. The deacons are legitimately calling for a meeting after
Yeah.
service. This guy's lost his mind. We
Yeah.
got to do something about this. But this is where the transition happens in verse 20. Verse 19 and 20. After saying all this, he says, I'm constantly thinking about these things, and therefore I've become depressed. So how many of you have found yourself in that spot before? It's a spiral, isn't it? You think about what's going on, and then you even physically and emotionally, you're going down the toilet bowl of sadness and depression. Then it's almost like spiritually you get sucked into it. Have you ever felt this way before? Like, man, I've been praying, but God's not hearing them. Like, I've been doing the things, but it seems like I'm hitting a wall. God's walled me in. He must have put a roof there because the prayers aren't going through, or I must have the wrong line because it's just not being heard. So you feel this way. And what I want to just remind our listeners and viewers first is that it is appropriate to feel sorrow and to feel grief. And it's even a good and godly thing to acknowledge our grief and our sorrow and the way those things make us feel. If you zoom out a little bit, so this was just chapter 3 that I referenced right now, but in the message yesterday, we referenced chapter 1 and we referenced the rest of this book, actually. There's only 5 chapters. I really recommend people read through them because I think they're pretty instructive to where we are in this day and age. And it does give us a voice for a new kind of way to process our emotions and our thoughts and our hurts and our sorrows and our griefs. But what we happen when we zoom out a little bit, we see that he says, man, there is a darkness and a brokenness everywhere in our world. So what we learn from these first 20 verses is essentially this: you and I have the opportunity to acknowledge brokenness around us, but not only brokenness around us, but brokenness in us. It's okay to say, this world is broken and fallen and a mess, and I'm struggling to get up and walk through it. Yeah, it's a heavy thing, but I think it's worth considering.
Yeah, it's that language he uses, it really is crazy. And I don't know, in my mind, it's kind of like warfare language, shooting an arrow, arrow being pierced by an arrow, being walled in, being chased by a lion, being chased by a predator, like his relationship with the Lord, he's describing it in a type of like he is in a battle, with God. And I don't know about you, but like when I'm in a funk, right? Like I'm like, man, I'm just struggling really bad today, and I'm in a, Lord's not hearing my prayers, and I'm struggling today, and I'm not having a good day, and God's doing crazy things against me, and the enemy's defeating me today. But like, I don't know, it might just be me, but like, do I really have it that bad? Like, am I ever really down that bad to where that's my language I'm using? And if I'm being honest, it's usually not. I'm usually just so focused on like myself and focused on these little small things that are happening. This is not the struggle most of the time that I'm having with the Lord.
Yeah.
And not that that's not true for anybody else, but I tend to put the little things as like, oh, this little thing that's happening right now that's going to pass away later that day. I'm putting it at the forefront of my mind and saying, oh, the Lord hates me today. I'm not going to be able to follow him today. Yeah. And I'm so focused on these little things. And here, he is in a deep, depressive battle with God that he's trying to wade through.
Well, let me just speak into that for you, because I'm sure there are some other listeners who may feel the same way. I know we have people in our church who have had devastating life situations in the past year. Yeah. So we have people who've lost loved ones, and there's empty seats at the table at holiday gatherings. Their Labor Day party yesterday was missing somebody who is a key part of their family, or they're all together, but they just received a horrible health diagnosis, and they don't know if they'll be here next Labor Day, let alone maybe even Christmas. There's people watching and listening right now who are walking through those moments. Those are real heavy, sorrowful, that may even use this language. But here's what I want to acknowledge, because when I say that, like, you kind of think, yeah, so that means my thing's nothing. But here's what I want to say to you, and what I want to say to a lot of our viewers, because I know for me, sometimes it's easy to look at those people, and as a pastor, I know a lot of the deeper things happening in people's lives. So when I have quote unquote problems, I'm like, man, my problems are nothing compared to theirs.
Yeah, it's not as bad.
But for me, it's a real thing I'm walking through, and it is heavy to me personally. And I've noticed this in the life, well, even I'll just say this with y'all in here. So you guys, I'm almost 20 years older than y'all, getting, around that ballpark. So definitely a whole generation above y'all. My kids are significantly older than Caleb's kids. I look at them, and when I pick up one of his babies, I'm like, I used to have these. So different life positions. So here's what I will say. Sometimes y'all are walking through heavy things and you lament to me about your heavy things. Can I tell you what in my flesh I think at first? It really ain't that big a deal.
Yeah.
But guess what? Somebody like, let's say Brother Frank, it just comes to mind, one of our elder deacons. Brother Frank, if he listens to me lament about one of the problems that I have right now that's consuming me, that's a big problem, Frank could very easily be like, bro, that ain't nothing, right? So all of us have different life positions and different things happening in our lives, and I think it's foolish for us to try to compare, like, who's got it worse? My wound's worse than yours. Well, oh yeah, my arrow's in the kidney. Well, mine's in the, liver. Like at the end of the day, all of us have pain, sorrow, grief, and suffering. And yes, there are some real tangible differences in those, but I think we would do well not to compare ourselves to each other, but at the end of the day, to be able to say, regardless of if you're just having a bad Monday on a Tuesday after a holiday week, or if you're literally walking through maybe the most devastating season of your life, in either one of those, I want to just say that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to acknowledge that before the Lord, that we have a God who is willing to listen to us and help us. But this is the pivot point, and it's a very, very important pivot point, because some people, when you say this, are like, oh, okay, cool, permission granted. And we said yesterday in the message that there's a significant difference between lamenting and complaining. Right?
Yep.
There's some people who think complaining is their spiritual gift, man. I'm that way sometimes.
I'm a complainer, yeah.
And it's easy to fall into that. But the difference, we said, is pretty simple. Lamenting is expressing our grief and our sorrow to the Lord, whereas complaining is expressing our dissatisfaction with our circumstances to the world and the people around us. Big difference. What direction is your complaint or lament going? Because if your lament is going at the people around you and the circumstances around you, then it really, a lament becomes a complaint or a grumble pretty quick. And I think it's so easy for us to do that. It's easy for us to live in the middle of that and just to stay there stuck in that position. And the Bible says, do not grumble or complain. So if we're not careful, we take a message about lamenting, and it almost gives voice to people to say, oh, cool, so I guess I can just stay here in this puddle lamenting the rest of my life. But this is where the pivot point has to happen, okay? The pivot point comes in verse 21, where the writer says, yet I call this to mind. I love the way the ESV says it. But this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. So he has this moment where, yes, I'm sitting in this, I'm acknowledging this, I'm thinking about the way this feels, but I'm bringing it to the Lord, the one who actually has the ability to change the way I'm thinking and to change the way I'm feeling. So there's a big difference in lamenting and complaining, because complaining is really just giving voice to your struggles, but lamenting is taking your struggles to the Lord, who is the only one who's capable of actually helping you in the midst of those struggles. So what does he do? He says, but therefore I have hope. So I'm changing my thinking from just being stewing in my grief, stewing in my sadness, stewing in my laments and grumbles and complaints, instead of just living in it, which, let's be honest, sometimes we just want to live in it.
Yeah.
But instead of just living in it, the Bible says it's okay to acknowledge it, to name it, to give voice to it, but you can't stay there.
Yeah.
You can't stay there. You've got to move forward. And the way you move forward is by reminding yourself of truth. Verse 22 says, because of the Lord's faithful love, we do not perish, for his mercies never end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. I say, so you vocalize, I'm not just going to live in the complaint. Here's what I say. The Lord is my portion. Therefore, I will put my hope in him. So the way that we get through the funk, the way we get through the grief, the way we get through the sorrow is by putting our trust in him. And that is something we have to actively, intentionally do, not by what we feel, by what we know. Man, your feelers are all over the place. You will live in an up and down wild road. I love the pastor Alistair Begg. he has this a moment where he said he was preaching at a conference in California, and he went to a church that was kind of what we would call seeker sensitive. Not time to get into that. But he says, I'm sitting there and, and you just have to hear Alistair Begg with his Scottish accent. It's like, all of a sudden, these numbers come up on the screen. It's a big, impressive countdown. And then all of a sudden, the number 10, 9, and something big's about to happen. Gets to 0. The lights come up. And he said, the worship leader struts out to the microphone and says into the microphone as the music's playing, how are y'all feeling? Of course, he says feeling. And this guy, how you feeling?
Yeah, how you feeling?
And he says, in that moment, if I would have said how I was feeling, they would have put me out of the church. Feeling upset, frustrated. And here's what he said: Don't ask me how I feel. Tell me what I know. Tell me what I know. So at some point, I want to just acknowledge that it's okay to feel, but our feeling, when we express that and bring it to the Lord, has to lead to what we know. And what we know is true is that God's love is unchanging toward us.
Yeah.
He should have quit a long time ago, but he didn't. God's love for us is unchanging. His mercies are new every single morning. We have the opportunity to start fresh any second of every day that's available for us. And because God has a steadfast love and steadfast mercy toward us as people, you and I get to live with a steadfast hope, an unshakable hope that changes everything in our lives. So even in the midst of our grief, our sorrow, our sadness, in the midst of our brokenness and our own sin, we can still live with this steadfast hope that absolutely changes it all. And the last thing we ended the message with, the Lord really gave this to me late last week, but I was really excited of the idea of, and actually, I didn't have this cool rhyme until church, but that lamentation leads to proclamation.
Proclamation, yeah.
That was not in my notes, but I was like, that's actually a pretty good line. Lamentation leads to proclamation. And we referenced 1 Peter 3:15. Yeah. And you can talk about that passage.
Yeah.
Always I'll give you the passage, then let you talk about it. Always be ready to give a reason for the hope that is in you.
Yeah. Before I forget my thought, is really the fact that language that is used there at the end in verse 21 through 24, the one that's popular and everybody knows, like it is put into such a different perspective when you read the rest of the chapter.
Yeah.
It really is. Like, and I mean, I heard it twice yesterday, like, hearing both the messages and still sitting here, like you reading through that and then you reading your mercies are new every morning.
Yeah, doesn't it make it, it's like going from black and white to full color.
It really is. Like I kind of didn't have any thoughts about anything because I was just kind of like, that's such a wild, drastic, like he literally like cuts it in half and is like, nope, here's the other side of it. And but scripture is like that all throughout the book, and it's amazing to see that. And even it literally has taken like 2 full days for me to like really grasp that. So I didn't want to miss that.
No, processing that's huge.
It really does put this whole idea of lamenting and complaining.
Yeah, his mercies are new every morning, even when you feel like you got an arrow sticking out of your kidney. Yeah. And I know we actually talked about this on the podcast a few weeks ago in reference to something else. We actually talked about this passage. But yeah, man, such a important truth.
Yeah, and if I'm going to complain about something, but if I'm actually getting ready to biblically lament about it, most of the time that complaint kind of fades away. Yeah. And it kind of breaks the wall down of like this, and I'm going on the other side of the coin of what we've been talking about. Because there's a lot of things that I will put my focus on that shouldn't have my focus.
But that's why we lament.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. But when I go to lament about
so that the Lord can change our hearts.
100%. And it opens your eyes to, hey, this isn't what you're supposed to be doing in this moment. You know, and it's supposed to be completely given to Him. And so this morning, I woke up this morning, and I was like, Lord, I was like, whatever I'm going to face today that I don't like, I want to give it to you. And I want you to take care of it. I want you to have it. I don't want to sit in it. I love that language of resting in it, because I think a lot of us get comfortable resting in the to be blunt, the crap we're in. Yeah. We like to sit in it and feel.
Edit that out, podcast.
And feel this need.
Can you bleep? Oh, yeah. Don't actually bleep that. They're going to think he said something worse than that.
Please do not. Please don't.
But my mom is going to be upset that the C word was used.
It's okay. You've used it a few Sundays.
Sorry, Miss Kathy.
It's fine. But no, I mean, we like to sit in it, and it makes you feel, I don't know, I think it makes you feel validated maybe, it makes you feel, because you don't have power in it, but there's something about it that makes you feel like, I don't really know the language to use.
Yeah,
but you sit at, because I've been there. Like when I'm in that struggle, there's something in the back of my mind that is like, you can't get out of this.
You can very quickly find your identity in what's happened to you.
I guess that's what it is.
And what's happening to you.
Yeah, the circumstances you're in, pretty much. Yeah.
So, and it's easy to let that happen.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people get there before they even know it.
Yes.
But they're building their life on their grief or their sorrow, and that's not healthy. And that's why, you need, yes, biblical truth, but yes, sometimes counseling and all that's necessary, depending on what we're talking about, what we're having to unpack.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. One of the reasons we lament is so the Lord can change our heart and change our attitude. And when people see that transformation happening, that's what leads to the proclamation. Because 1 Peter 3:15 says, always be ready to give a reason for the hope that is in you.
The hope that is in you, man.
And we talked about the background. Can you remind us of the background a little bit? Do you remember this, or do you need me to?
When did we talk about it? Just give me the
Sunday. Yeah. So First Peter, the background of 1 Peter.
Yeah.
So that's written, and that's a verse that a lot of us know. Yep. Always be ready to give a reason for this hope that is in you. But he is writing this to who? Like it says in 1 Peter 1:1, this is to the elect. What's the word that starts with an E?
I don't like to use that word. I don't like to use that elect word.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's a different podcast episode. The elect, you got it?
No, I was going to say that's in the Bible. That the word.
Yeah, that word elect is in the Bible.
This is for a different podcast.
That's a whole other episode.
Yeah, this is a whole other episode. Don't get me started on that.
So the elect exiles.
Yeah. Yeah,
some translations say aliens.
Literally,
these are the people who had to run for their lives.
Literally, are running away from a circumstance that none of us can ever.
Insane persecution. I really got too graphic for Family Sunday, but listen, go for it.
First, I did have a few of my Sunday school leaders go, "Wow, what a Family Sunday!" And I was no, but it really is
to explain the massive persecution they were facing.
You have to understand.
And yet, to that people, Peter says, "Hey, you're going to have people coming up to you asking why you're so hopeful in the midst of this. Yeah. Be ready to tell them." And that's how Christians ought to be living.
Yeah.
In the middle of our lamenting, in the middle of our grief, in the middle of our sorrow, in the middle of our trials, in the middle of our hardships, we ought to be lamenting so that the Lord can remind us of his steadfast love and his steadfast mercy so that we can live with the living hope. And then when people say, "How do you have this living hope?" we can say, "Let me tell you why."
He's literally encouraging all of the Christians who are hiding to literally not be killed and put up in front of everybody. He's telling them, "All right, guys, what does the Lord have for you today?" And it's like, that language is crazy. And that entire, essentially at that moment when Peter's writing that, the entire church body at the time, like the entire body of the church that was made up at that moment, all easily had every opportunity to sit there and grumble and go, "God, where are you at? Because you ain't here," right? And honestly, most of us in that situation are going to have that same response. No doubt. Where are you at? Because nobody sees you here. And yet Peter, the same one who has been there before, is going, "All right, God's here. What are we going to do for him today?"
And knows that they're living with that living
100%.
Changes everything.
It does.
And I want to encourage our listeners and viewers who may be walking through some of the hardships we've talked about. Whether you're just having a bad Tuesday, a bad week, a bad month, or maybe, again, we know there are families in our church who are walking through unimaginable circumstances that would take a lot of people out, literally would take them out. And yet, in the midst of your lamentation, God may be preparing you for proclamation.
Yeah.
So be encouraged today that even in the middle of what you're walking through, God stands ready to use it. And, I had y'all remember, I think you were sitting there with me in a meeting where one of our pastor friends was walking through a tough situation, and one of the older pastors said, "Well, you'll be surprised how God wants to use it." And I remember the pastor lamenting in a big way and saying, "I'll be honest with you, that gives me no comfort in any way to know that God's going to use the loss of this person in my life to help others." And we were all just like, whoa, but I appreciated the honesty in that.
Yeah.
Yet here's what we know. Even in that lamentation, God's preparing that brother for proclamation. And so today you may not be ready to receive that. You may hear me say that and say, "Pastor Rusty, I don't give a flip."
Yeah.
Who
Bleep
cares?
that out.
I'm just, don't believe that one either. Like I'm just, you say that, but I'm just, listen, here's what I want to tell you. Keep taking it to the Lord. Keep taking it to the Lord, and He, by His grace, in His time, will help that lamentation turn to the reminder of the truth that you have a steadfast love, steadfast mercy that leads to a steadfast hope, and you will be in opportunities to proclaim that hope.
Yeah, man.
So
yeah, I like the language of don't sweep it under the rug, big or small. I'm glad we talked about that, because the whole time yesterday, my sin was allowing me to just think about, I'm not really that bad off.
Yeah.
But I am, because I'm a sinful person. I still deal with my sin. So yes, I am bad off.
Yeah,
I
your
am
sin
in trouble.
or your situations. I mean, both of those cause us to lament, because we talked about sin a little bit. We haven't talked about that as much on the podcast today, but primarily talking about the situations that people find themselves
100%.
in. And it is easy when you talk about lamenting. We're looking at. I mean, we buried a sweet saint in our church this weekend, and her family is sitting down here. So as I'm talking about this, well, obviously they're lamenting, right? And we have other families who've lost loved ones in the past year, and you're looking around at them. Well, they're lamenting. We have people battling cancer. Well, they're lamenting. But we also have people who are lamenting who have a boss at work that's been bad.
Yep. But it affects them.
I thought you guys were going to say amen to that. Turn your mic on. Yeah. We understand that. But yeah, I mean, so all of those things are real. And in the big and the small, we have a God who cares about all those things.
100%. Yeah.
So just press into that. And
100%.
Let lamentation lead to what the Lord has for you.
Yeah. Proclamation. That's what I'm talking about.
All right.
That was good, man. But I did really, because I am a history guy, so I love that you added 1 Peter in there, because I do think that not only brings us back from the Old Testament timeline, puts it into a little bit of the start of the early church, dealt with this handily, and we still have the effects of this, and we still have and need this idea of biblical lamenting. So I loved how you added that yesterday. But
so next week we dive into Romans chapter 8. So if you're one of those who likes to read ahead, we're going to be doing it for probably 6 or 7 weeks.
As long as we don't get to chapter 9 and talk about the E word.
Yeah, the E word elect, yeah. Next Monday, we have a special podcast happening. We are going to, I guess, can I announce some? I'm not ready to announce. I'm not ready to announce it. We don't have all the details together, but I will tell you this. I would
love to know.
We have a new podcast that is going to be dropping next week.
I do know.
It is going to be a new weekly show, and it features none of us.
That's what I'm talking about.
So next week, you will get to meet the host of that new podcast that I think is going to be a great encouragement to you on a weekly basis. So next week on the Deeper podcast, you will meet the host of our new, yet to be officially named podcast. You'll get to hear from him. Or that person. You'll get to hear from that person, and you'll hear their heart and how they kind of came here and what we're looking forward to. So that's next week. So you want to tune into the Deeper podcast next week. We may briefly touch base. In fact, we'll probably have our conversation, and then tagged on to the Deeper podcast will be a conversation and launch of that new podcast. So be looking for that. Some fun information coming down the way.
Sounds good. That's going to be awesome.
All right, y'all.
That's it.
Well, have a great week, and we'll see you soon.
Bye. Boom.